Sorry.
but let's speak in English so we like change our brains to English. Because
Yeah,
most likely when we start speaking, we will be like,
yeah, there's the switch from languages,
right.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Um, okay. CiNEOLA Presents is a new podcast from CiNEOLA, a platform from Latin American stories connecting audiences with diverse representations of Latin America on film. Each episode will feature conversations between filmmakers, artists, writers from the Latin American community. My name is Carlos Aguilar. I'm a film critic in Los Angeles, and today I'll be speaking with director Miguel Novelo about La Marea, his interactive documentary, which is now available on CiNEOLA. Thank you for being with us today, Miguel.
Thank you, Carlos.
So yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting way to experience documentary. First, tell us what was the impulse in going to this particular part of Mexico, Seybaplaya in Campeche, to create this story. Did you have a connection with this place beforehand, or was there an interest that was born out of a particular story?
Right, Carlos. I'm from originally from Peninsula of Yucatan. I lived my whole life in Campeche. And just recently, I've been living in the Bay Area for the last 5 years. So while I was doing my undergrad at SFAI, I really wanted to make a documentary about this place specifically, Seybaplaya, which is 20 minutes from where I grew up. And particularly what I love about Seybaplaya is that it's like their own space within the universe of Campeche. They do the thing they do everything their own way in some regard. They're mainly it's a fisherman place where most of the economy happens that way. And I had like a lot of opportunities to do courses and workshops there, and that's how I met my subject Jorge. And then I just decided that I wanted to do this essay on this place and Jorge.
You were doing workshops in this place, like in terms of documentary or filmmaking for people in town?
Yeah. Pretty much for like people from high schools or I don't know. Like it was like mostly open, but mostly for like teenagers that were just trying to teach ways to do filmmaking, and sometimes just think about like how can tell a story even if they don't have like editing programs or whatnot. So like sometimes we like there's this workshop that we did that was like taking a photography, record with their phones audio, print the photography and place it somewhere, and then you have this audio and image that in some way like depicts like a very streamlined way of documentary work.
I mean, I think that's very interesting in terms of, oftentimes when people make documentaries in a specific community, it oftentimes might feel like they're mining those stories and taking them out instead of bringing something in. So I think it's very interesting that you decided to sort of bring the storytelling or teach storytelling to people in this community. Is that part of your philosophy, perhaps, in how you make films?
Definitely. I feel like, I mean, even before I decided to make a film about Seybaplaya, I think it was more a bit about me enjoying being there and finding justifications to be there, and teaching or like sharing was one of them. And then it was just naturally, right? Like, I don't know. I felt like there was like so much things that I could like shot and record that I felt like, okay, now I feel part of here in some ways or another. Like I know the ins and outs, and I just felt, yeah. I mean, I don't think I'm looking for justify what I can do or not, but I think it's. I mean, you need to be there from there. Like for example, I haven't done a Bay Area film because I'm still struggling with that idea of who am I, where am I. But now I feel way more comfortable after living there for 5 years, and maybe most likely I'll do. My next project will be based in the Bay Area, for example.
What was it about your subject, about Jorge Carvajal, that you found interesting or compelling to sort of center your story around him?
Well, Jorge, I met him when he was 16, 15 years old. We shot La Marea when he was 18 years old. So I really get to know him pretty much. He was always a person who was calling for attention. He took 2 of my workshops. And in the beginning, when I approached him, he wanted to be an actor, or that's what he was like telling me from all these workshops that we were doing. So I thought, yeah, I mean, maybe we can do a documentary about like you doing that journey. And everything changed pretty much when the first day of shooting, we're walking to the ocean to do this, like, I don't know, we're just doing like playing around sort of and document. And because I didn't know where I was going with that, but going to the beach, going to the ocean, he told me he was afraid of the water, which I was, for me, like, what are you talking about? Like, everybody here is a fisherman. Everybody loves the ocean. I mean, this is Seybaplaya. Playa is like the beach. Like, it's in the name of the town. He's like, I just don't like it. I feel way more comfortable in land. And at the same time, he was telling me that he really wants to stay in Seybaplaya. That's his dream. Like, and like his dream was to stay there, grow there, and be successful in his own town. And this juxtaposition of like belonging and wanting to be in their home, and even if the main thing of that town is something that he doesn't like, it's something that I connect with, because I migrated to the United States with opportunities to develop and study and just keep moving forward. And he was just doing something I really was longing for, like wanting to be home and just wanting to thrive here. And I don't know, in some ways I've found myself mirroring with him, and I admire him also in his way of seeing life or like perceiving life. So I thought the whole film should be around him and this town.
And once you decided that he was going to be sort of the center of the story, did you follow him around for a specific amount of time, or did you have, certain images that you wanted to capture already decided, or did all of them sort of develop from the day to day there?
Yeah, for production purposes and for the nature of the film that I wanted to do, I spent like roughly 2 months going in and out of Seybaplaya. Sometimes spending a night there, and I was just documenting everything. So I have like hours of footage. And since the beginning of the film, I really thought about this multiplicity of like documenting someone. Most of the times I think about documentary, and then you really have like a great picture of what is this about. Is this telling a story, and then just having like a message to come across. And because I was documenting Jorge and his life and his intimate life and Seybaplaya, I thought it could be better if you have more as like a series of portraits, and you really start making these ideas of Jorge, but not really telling you who is Jorge, because I think Jorge should be the one who tells that story, not so much myself. And so I took that approach to the documentary. More roughly I was going in and out for 2 months.
And when you were making there's some very striking images in the film, obviously natural ones, but also the circus to me is a very stunning moment in the film. The rain is really fantastic. So when you were capturing these images, did you already have in mind that this could be sort of like a more experimental, more interactive piece?
Yeah, I've been talking about this for a while. Like, in where I'm from, we don't have like a big, like every other place that doesn't have like a city, we don't have like a industry per se. So I was thinking, what could be a Campeche filmmaking, or like what's the filmmaking that we can accomplish it speaks to the people and speaks to the way we live life. And this is my approach to it. I'm open. I love the idea of like creating things that I haven't seen. That fulfills me a lot. So I think that's how I approach La Marea. In a way, is like a series of stills that move. And I feel like that's how Seybaplaya is. It's sort of like nor here nor there. It's sort of like a capture of time and space. So I think that's how I was approaching the whole documentary. And also in order to allow me to document intimate moments, because I'm in his house, like trying to be as unperceived as I can. I needed those type of shots. I thought, and my whole process of shooting is just like a small camera and a microphone on it, and I'm just there like listening and trying to fish like them those images. But I mean, Seybaplaya, it's amazing, but the rain, the sunsets, the sun, that's where I grew up. And I have seen this for my entire life. So I already knew like what type of images I was gonna get.
What was the process like to translate that into the interactive version of the story?
Well, basically, the interactive, I think, is speaking out of my not training, but more like the way we consume media today. How do you deliver perhaps experimental short film, documentary short film about perhaps something sort of niche to a broader audience? And in some ways, I was sharing this on Instagram sort of while I was making it, like a small shots and scenes. And I thought this is something that I should explore on, like the way we consume media with fast images on like short spans of time. And I thought this interactive form of consuming documentary could be a great way to disseminate the story, right? And also that you create your own narrative. That I think that's what the end goal I want to have with the film, like that you can create how you arrange the shots will definitely make a way of like change the way you perceive Jorge. It has to. That's how, like, if you rearrange films in the way you consume the shots, I think that happens to the viewer that can like have like a more broader experience with Jorge and the place. And just having those elements, that's what I wanted to make it more interactive, that you have a say and also that you have a way of belonging with the film, that you sort of engage with it and it's not sort of like a shallow consumption of the film. It just, every time I got asked to show the film on internet, I always refused because I didn't want to show you just the film, because then I lose the whole idea of like choosing. And even when I show it at film festivals, I wanted to have full control of what I show at a film festival, so I changed the cut every time I shot it to a film festival. So the Sheffield documentary, it's different than the one that I show at Morelia, and it's different than the one I show at festivals at Yucatan, and it's different because I shot it myself and I had the whole edit, and I was just like, I have the power to really hone the story. I cannot do that if I have a whole team. So I'll take advantage of that power that I have.
So which one is the definitive version of the film if there's different cuts?
I think all of them they are. I mean, here's the thing. We cannot do that most of the times because the projects are huge, right? If you have a set of people are doing and have stakes on the film, that's impossible. But that's not my film. My film is not that. Never has been and never will be. Therefore, why not take advantage of that power, of the idea that I can change the cut, because I think this will be a better version that I want to show you. I don't know if that's my... I don't know. I don't know if that's the small cinema that can be done, and maybe that's the way to do it, because in small projects you have that freedom. In bigger you cannot, unless you have like something huge. And think about like Netflix interactive stories like Black Mirror, blah blah, that are conceived that way. But I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to use the opportunities I have, instead of like thinking like, okay, I don't have a huge crew and I cannot do this or that, but because I don't have that, I can change the cuts and I can just have something more personal that I'm giving to a certain audience. Anyway,
yeah,
because I don't have that and I always wanted to show this 360 version as like the web version, a version that I'm there and you have this scene where you watch La Marea digitally.
I mean, I think it's to me, it's fascinating, the idea of having different cuts of the same film, because I feel like with most films, we are very attached to the idea of this is the singular vision, this is the only version it exists, you know?
Right.
So I think it's fascinating and perhaps even, some people might find it, frustrating or strange to know that there's multiple versions of the same film. Do you find it sort of freeing, liberating in the fact that you're not tied to one version of the story, that it doesn't have to exist just in one way?
Definitely. I learned filmmaking without any mentor or anything in Campeche. So the do it all really pushed me to be comfortable with like doing the whole facets of the production. And I thought there's something there that could be done that cannot be done other ways. And this idea of like doing the work of changing the cut, because I don't have to ask anyone if I can or not. Just the curators or whoever shows the film. That's the interesting conversation. But it's just one person. If that person allows me to change it, and it's amazing because I don't know, when I showed in Oaxaca, I didn't have any ocean shots because it was being shown next to the ocean. So I was like, yeah, only land shots. You have the ocean next to the film. You don't need that. When I showed in Campeche, Jorge speaks through most of the film. You don't get that in the other cuts. Because Campeche, they know Seybaplaya, but they don't know Jorge. So they should have more of Jorge. He's one of us. So you should, when he refers to something, you'll get it right away. Versus if I show the United States, if he starts speaking about localisms and tropicalisms, you will miss that part. And then you lose interest because you're like not understanding what he's really talking about. So I don't know. I think that's the possibilities of one person doing it all. That I can do that. And I was always trying to translate it into interactive form because then how do you translate that into one cut online, right? Like I want to upload 10 cuts. So that's when the interactivity comes in. And I thought this since the beginning because the name of the film is La Marea because that's what the tide is. It goes up and down. You'll never know. It's always changing. It's always going up. It's always going down. Just like life, and so does the film.
I mean, I gotta say, I'm still very, I guess I've never really heard of someone having multiple cuts of a film showed at a festival. And I think it's very, your reasoning behind it makes so much sense. The idea that if there's a beach next to this town, we don't need those shots. If they know the town, but they don't know the character, I think those are very valid reasons. But to me, it's like, I wonder, the version I saw, it's different from what other people saw. So the conversations about this film will be very different among different crowds. So the film, it's not the same film basically.
Right.
There are elements that are probably collectively exist in all of them. So do you know how many versions you've done already?
Probably 9, I think. I just made one more. This film is gonna be shown at the Young Museum in the next exhibition that they're opening with. And literally 2 days ago, I was thinking, I should not keep doing this because once it's online and once that's what we're doing this with CiNEOLA, that's what we're talking with Danielle. It's like, okay, this is sort of definitive, like the last time I'm going to edit La Marea. So yeah, probably 9. Yeah, I'll say 9. It's a problem editing. You open the project and I need to find like the sequence or I don't know, because sometimes I change things that I show at Oaxaca, for example, and I want to combine it with the things I show in Sheffield. So I have to I have to be better in the next project if I want to attempt this to be more organized in order to get what I want. Because
this might be complicated if you make a feature. Is that in the works to make a feature documentary?
The next project I'm trying to do, just decided it like the last few weeks, is about cenotes, Chicxulub, the meteorite that fall in Yucatan. And I definitely want to do it way longer than La Marea. So yes, maybe, but I don't know. Yeah, definitely. It's something that can be done, but of course I need way more resources and maybe I need like a bigger team, of course. Yeah, I mean, this is totally scalable. It's just like more work.
Totally. I wanted to talk a little bit about your journey as a filmmaker. So you grew up in Campeche, but you studied at Stanford, right? Which I believe is one of the best programs for documentary, at least in the United States. They're very well known for the documentary program. How was that sort of journey from your small sort of universe to taking those skills and developing them in the U.S.?
I'm actually in the MFA program at Stanford on the art program, not the documentary program. But we are very friends with all the documentary program. And I think I started doing films like early on and like 10 years ago, more so, like started doing short films and whatnot. But I think and I made a film festival when I was like 20 years old, like 8 years ago, that became like a medium-sized film festival in Campeche, because there was no like windows to short films or any sort of art house films or outside of like the film industry. So we developed that with a team. I was part of that. Doing that because I was in charge of how you see the film, where are the speakers, where is the screen, where do you sit down, where do we place the film festival. And that made me see that there's so many things that filmmakers were not thinking of. Kubrick did. Kubrick sent instructions of what to do between they changed reels, like play music.
There's a whole documentary about the assistant that helped him do all that.
Right.
So, yeah.
So that control of like what happens between, after, and where, and how you see the film completely changed the experience. I mean, I bet you have seen it, right? Like if you go with your friends, that's a completely different experience to watch a film that by yourself. Right. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's not. But that part of doing the film festival for like a few years made me realize there's so much that as a filmmaker I'm not paying attention to, and that is fully changed the way the film is being done and how it's being perceived. So I've been learning a lot about technology and like installations and expanded cinema since I moved to San Francisco to SFAI. And that's where La Marea was conceived pretty much. And also being in the Bay Area where everybody's just thinking about like new ways of interactivity and technology. I think I really got that just by being in the culture of like the Bay Area, just thinking about that. And I do think we have the tools now. Like we're half internet people, half real people. And there's so many things you can do in these windows that we are so experts on using. I mean, we've seen it with like, can't remember the name. I don't want to do a sponsor, but like the app, I think it starts with Q and it ends with I, that you change your phone. Anyway, so, I mean, I'm not saying I want to do that, but I mean, they're exploring, and I bet there's like new ways of just enhancing the story.
Right. Was there a specific reason why you decided to go with the art MFA as opposed to focusing on documentary? Did it give you more freedom, perhaps?
Oh, I can do anything I want in the MFA program, and I can take any classes I want at Stanford. So I took one that calls Minds and Machines, that is about how the brain works in relationship with computers. And I took one that is Lies, Tech, and Truth, that is about deception in social media and like in media at all, that speaks to psychology and philosophy and computer science. So I think, I don't know. I mean, filmmakers are so close to technology that I just wanted to do more of that. And I mean, just, I don't know, like it just gives me more freedom to use the tools that we have in outside of ways of consuming media. And I think we're at a point that distribution wise, like thinking I'm going to work with a big distribution company, I think there's now more than ever ways that I can get into those spaces with something completely new out of the norm of filmmaking. So yeah, I don't know. And it's just more fascinating just to think, what if I use X speakers for this film specifically, and you only get to see this film with this set of speakers that, I don't know, you feel the sound when it's being played. That's a whole different cinematic language that you can create that otherwise is just hard to get.
I do see in that, in other things you're saying, that you're probably interested or fascinated by control. And I mean control in the sense of controlling the experience that the people have in relationship to your art, right? Is that important to you to sort of, like you said, manipulate the speakers or manipulate the environment in which people see it, what cut people see? Why is the control over the work so important to you?
That's an interesting question. Control. Well, because it's just one more tool. If you think about the people, DPs or a director, I'm just taking it to one more thing, like where you sit down to watch this. I just recently saw Olafur Eliasson. I think he has a I think an interview on Netflix, and he asked the viewer to turn off all the lights that I have in the room and just have the TV on as the only light source for his interview, which I thought, yeah, that's what's up. Yeah, it will be. He knows I'll get something way better than versus I don't do what he tells me to do. I don't know. I think it's just like the idea, the opportunities that we have technology wise are so big that why not take them?
Right, and I mean, it definitely changes the way that people perceive the the work, the material that you're creating. So I'm excited for people to see the 360 version of La Marea. Have you continued to be in touch with Jorge?
Yeah. I just recently saw him. We shot the 360 footage a few weeks ago.
So that was shot more recently. Okay.
Yeah, this is shot 2020 July.
So that's a whole different version of La Marea then.
Definitely, yeah. That's something undone. Yeah. I've talked with him. It's like, I have this idea. Let's make it happen. He's just like, sure. Yeah.
That's amazing. So people will get to see a new version besides the ones that they saw at festivals. Can you talk a little bit about what your next project will be about and how you're approaching that now moving on? Because La Marea has been done for a while now, right?
Yeah. I think, I know that from friends or peers who have done feature films. That is like a commitment of years. I'm doing sort of the same, but in a small or different experimental format. So definitely, I'm researching about cenotes, the idea of cultural implications that those have. Right now, Peninsula of Yucatan.
Sorry, do you want to explain to people what cenotes
are? A cenote is a cavern full of water. It's naturally made, but most likely happened because the meteorite that supposedly destroyed the dinosaurs fall in Chicxulub in Peninsula of Yucatan, and the impact created that the land raised above the sea level, so the rains create these caverns full of water, and the Mayans use it for rituals. The Mayans use it in wars to fight against the colonizers. Right now, they're like a big driven place for tourism. There's a Costco, sort of for commercials, that has a cenote in their land because they're so common. There's people who have cenotes in the backyards. So it's just so crazy that really detects what like life in the Peninsula of Yucatan, and it has this mysticism that perhaps is being lost. But at the same time, there's like infrastructures that are like contaminating these cenotes. I don't know. I don't have a story, Carlos, but what I do have is a lot of people are like experts and a lot of people who are in love with these places. And so do I. And I think that's what I'm going to be approaching right now as my final thesis, perhaps at my MFA program and the next years to come.
Are you interested or excited by sort of the documentary scene in Mexico, or perhaps there's more of an experimental, group of people working in Mexico?
I'm working with 2 developers from Campeche. That was a key part of this project for La Marea, that we are definitely going to be working on this as like La Marea was conceived as a documentary and then like morph into a web version, sort of speak. This one will be the opposite. Will become like a more web version of like a documentary that definitely will morph into a traditional film festival space. Or perhaps not, but like I do want to get to those audiences. I love film festivals. That's where you get people really eager to see and consume stories. And that's where crazy and amazing conversations happen. I feel like all documentarians are amazing because they have an eye and ears for telling stories of others. So yes, I want to get to those audiences too.
Before we conclude this conversation, I wanted to ask if you've recently seen any films, documentaries, or fiction that you were excited about that sort of really you found compelling.
Definitely. I have a film club, and so we have been watching films over the last few months. One of those is called Notes on Blindness. Is a film from the UK that they use tapes that the protagonist left when he was losing his blindness, and he's a scholar, so he was doing it for research. But the whole film is reenacting what the tapes recording, and you get the whole film. It's very experimental, it needs a lot of attention, but I think the whole exercise on it, on how to repurpose and perhaps grab something that has a huge anthropological value to our broader audience, I think that's what I was like interested in. I'm like, this is fantastic.
And it also pushes the form, right? It's not a traditional narrative. It sort of is doing something interesting with the format.
Definitely, yeah. I think there's so many stories that a lot of filmmakers are doing, how to share things that are hard to be told in a quote unquote traditional way. That you have to escape the form in order to get to those audiences.
Okay. What do you expect people to get from La Marea, whatever version of La Marea they see, whether it's the traditional documentary or the 360 version? What's your hope that, is it a sensorial perhaps experience that you want from them, or what do you think that what do you hope that people get from it?
I think I wanted you to transport you there. I think I'm so interested about the idea of like about space. And just the idea, once you feel that you're in a space, you belong, and then you, that you're not part of that, and that's with you forever. I don't know if La Marea accomplished that. I hope so. Definitely, it's something I was thinking of. I think once we feel we belong somewhere else, I think you really change as a person, and I think that's what I was like, perhaps attempting to do with La Marea. That's how I feel living abroad every day, just like the idea of like trying to be somewhere else and just belong. And I think that's what this film, very personal, intimate, answered to you. I think, that's like what deep down I was thinking.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Miguel, for sharing with us so much about La Marea, and I hope that people enjoy the film through CiNEOLA, this 360 version that'll be available for them to enjoy. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this first episode of CiNEOLA Presents, a new podcast where different speakers will be having conversations with directors and artists throughout the upcoming weeks and months. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Carlos. Thank you.